Good evening. Welcome. We're going to give this a couple minutes before we start in, as I see a bunch of folks coming into the Zoom, and it is very nice to see a bunch of names I recognize. Uh-oh.
Buenas tardes, bienvenidos. Vemos muchos nombres que reconocemos. Vamos a esperar a que muchos más se incorporen. Gracias.
Thanks, Heidi. Okay. Welcome, everybody. It is so great. We have so many folks coming in. Hello. I see a lot of people I know. So I'm going to give us one more minute before we officially start. But for those of you who've already joined, I want to let you know that tonight, as we go through our draft document, if you want to follow along, we highly encourage it. And I'm going to have my colleague Kelsey drop the link into our webpage where you could open up our draft document if you would like. And I'm happy to report when we get to the substantive presentation, we're going to have the page numbers referenced. So hopefully it makes it easy for you to follow along. Fantastic. All right. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. So good evening. Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Rubin. I'm with the California Department of Conservation. I'm going to be facilitating this evening on behalf of the Department of Conservation and the California Air Resources Board. We are so glad you could join us this evening. We know there's always lots of things pulling on your time, so we are grateful to have you with us tonight. The very first thing we're going to do is talk about Spanish interpretation that is available this evening. We have 3 interpreters working with us, Mark, Heidi, and Fabiola. Thank you in advance for your great work. Heidi, take it away.
Gracias, buenas tardes. Es fabuloso verles el día de hoy. Agradecemos su tiempo por acompañarnos. Soy Sara del Departamento de Conservación de California y junto con Carl agradecemos que se estén pasando este tiempo con nosotros. Tenemos a 3 intérpretes ayudando el día de hoy a la interpretación simultánea en español. Tenemos a Mark, Fabiola y Heidi, una servidora. Les vamos a dar las instrucciones para acceder al canal de español durante esta presentación a través de Zoom. Si usted nos está acompañando a través de una computadora, puede ver en la parte inferior de su pantalla un globo terráqueo. Si no ve el símbolo de globo terráqueo, no lo verá en este momento, lo verá en un minutito en cuanto terminemos de dar las instrucciones. Puede buscarlo en los 3 puntos, donde dice interpretación, y ahí puede elegir el idioma español. Si usted desea solamente escuchar la voz de sus intérpretes, puede silenciar el audio original para solo escuchar una voz, y si no lo hace, escuchará en el trasfondo el idioma en inglés muy bajito, pero aún podrá escuchar a su intérprete. Si nos acompaña a través de un teléfono inteligente o una tableta, usted puede acceder a esta función a través de los 3 puntos y desglosando el dedo hacia abajo, buscando lenguaje o interpretación, igual elija español. Y en esta parte muy importante, apretar la tecla o el botón azul que dice finalizado o done para poder acceder al canal o al idioma. Les agradecemos por su asistencia. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So you should see a little globe icon at the bottom of your screen, and we welcome you to click on that to choose the language of your choice. I also want to mention that we do have professional closed captions available this evening. and you should see the little CC button at the bottom of your screen. And if you would like to have the closed captions on, we welcome you to do that. So here is our agenda for the evening. We are about to have our welcomes from my director and our colleague Courtney at the Air Resources Board. Then Supervisor Doug Ito will provide an overview and give us a little context setting. Then we will go into our substantive presentations from my colleagues Rohit and Ibakun. And then we will get to what is always our favorite part of these meetings, which is hearing from you, hearing what you want to share. We do have a panel assembled tonight, not just from the Department of Conservation and the Air Resources Board, but also with some colleagues of ours from the Water Board who are here to answer questions you might have. So when we get to that part of the meeting, I'll let everybody introduce themselves. So with that, if you want to go to the next slide, I'm happy to hand this over to my director, Jennifer Lucchesi.
Thank you, Sarah. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are gathered to discuss the implementation of Senate Bill 1137 that establishes new safety measures to protect public health and safety by creating buffer zones between oil and gas operations and community spaces. I know most of you are aware of this important law, and we'll learn more about it shortly from our oil and gas supervisor, Doug Ito. I'm just 10 weeks into my time at the Department of Conservation, but to that end, my priority this year is connection and reconnection with each other, with communities we serve, and the lands and resources we help steward. I really appreciate that you took time out of your evening to join us, because public participation in the rulemaking process is critical to the successful implementation of SB 1137. Tonight is not just an opportunity for us to share, it's also an invitation for you to share with us. It's our opportunity to learn and hear from you all. I am delighted that the California Air Resources Board, as well as the State Water Control Resources Board, are with us tonight. And I just really want to express my gratitude for your time and your energy. We know how valuable that is. I'll now turn it back over to Sarah to introduce Courtney. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Courtney, welcome.
Thanks, Sarah. Good evening, everyone. So I'm Courtney Smith. I'm the Principal Deputy Executive Officer with the California Air Resources Board, also known as CARB. However, prior to this role, I had the pleasure of working at CalGEM, which is in the Department of Conservation, and got to work very closely with CARB and the State Water Board on implementation of SB 1137. So I'm just really excited to be here tonight, and so glad that I get to still be a part of helping support implementation of this important legislation. So I just want to take this as an opportunity to welcome you here tonight, and also say a few words about CARB and what our role is here. So CARB is the lead agency for California's climate change programs. But we also oversee air pollution control efforts in the state to attain and maintain health-based air quality standards. And we're here tonight in partnership with the Department of Conservation and CalGEM and the water boards to be able to share more with you on what CARB's responsibilities are under SB 1137 and how we plan to move forward. So tonight you're going to hear from CARB's SB 1137 implementation team. They are within our monitoring and laboratory division, which is one of 11 divisions at CARB, and it's responsible for programs ranging from overseeing and maintaining California's extensive air monitoring network, to conducting community-focused air monitoring, to developing and implementing regulatory programs. So tonight, our team is going to present on the development of performance standards for emission detection systems, which is just a very foundational part of establishing clarity on the requirements for leak detection established by SB 1137. So we're going to have a question and answer period during public comment, and we'll try to get your questions answered as much as we can. But I do want to acknowledge that we are very much in the early stages of CARB's rule development process. So now is just a really critical time for us to be able to hear from you, to help shape how we're moving forward. Jennifer talked about connection. I couldn't agree more that we genuinely welcome your comments, your suggestions, your feedback as we embark on this rulemaking, and we look forward to hearing from you tonight. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic to Doug Ito, the State Oil and Gas Supervisor with CalGEM.
Thank you, Courtney. Thanks everyone for spending your evening with us today. My name is Doug Ito, the State Oil and Gas Supervisor overseeing CalGEM. By way of a brief background to CalGEM, in 2019, legislation was passed renaming us to the California Geologic Energy Management Division. And more significantly, it added public health, safety, and the environment to our statutory mission. This was really the beginning of our institutional change as the state regulatory agency overseeing oil, gas, and geothermal industries. And we are much more focused now on managing the responsible decline and decommissioning of old oil and gas infrastructure in California. As this slide illustrates, the decline in oil and gas production has been underway for decades. And with it, the oil and gas industry has experienced significant changes. We expect this trend to continue. Programmatically, CalGEM's oil and gas permitting actions shifted dramatically to plugging wells as our statutory mission and overall posture towards the industry evolved. Since 2018, permits focused on plugging and permanently sealing wells, the blue line on this graph, have come to dominate our permit volumes over time. Last year, permits to plug and permanently seal wells represented over 3/4 of all permits we issued. This year, we are continuing to implement operational and environmental review improvements that will impact our permitting activity, but we expect to continue our focus on plugging wells as the dominant trend. Tonight, we're focused on the implementation of Senate Bill 1137, which took effect in June of last year. For your reference, we're dropping a link into the chat to the proposed regulatory text. Senate Bill 1137 was signed in 2022, and among other things, it established restrictions on oil and gas operations within 3,200 feet of sensitive receptors. That 3,200-foot area is called a health protection zone, which I'll go into a little bit more detail on my next slide. Originally scheduled to begin January 1st of 2023, CalGEM only had about a month of implementation before the oil industry qualified a ballot measure for the November 2024 election. The ballot measure suspended implementation and prevented us from taking further implementation actions. And then in June of last year, the industry withdrew the ballot measure, making the provisions of 1137 effective immediately. Among the first steps CalGEM took were to return over 2,000 permit applications that were pending before CalGEM. This was necessary because the statute requires operators to identify whether any permit application is inside or outside of the 3,200-foot health protection zone. This slide lists a few other things Senate Bill 1137 requires of operators, including inventories and maps of their proposed operations, controls for sound, light, and dust impacts related to operations, offering water sampling and testing under certain circumstances, and development and implementation of leak detection and response plans, which is the subject of the CARB rulemaking effort. Health protection, this slide shows a screenshot of CalGEM's Health Protection Zone mapping tool, but I would encourage you to view it live through the link. The Health Protection Zone map is an online dynamic tool for the public, operators, and CalGEM staff. We published this tool within a few weeks of 1137 becoming effective to enable users to visualize the health protection zones, access the underlying data, and send feedback to CalGEM about location information that may need to be updated. Since the health protection zones are continuously changing as residential, commercial, and public space land uses change, these maps are a useful tool which we will update periodically. To fulfill documentation requirements under SB 1137, operators have the primary responsibility to ensure any data they submit is accurate. So while these maps provide a starting point for them, they cannot rely on them exclusively. In the same way, CalGEM staff use the maps to validate what is submitted to us, but we also use more updated information that we receive and verify from the public or from the operators in their individual permit applications. The maps are playing a critical public transparency role. Anyone can use them to find a geographic location of interest, see the health protection zone information, and provide feedback if information needs to be updated. Tonight, CalGEM will be focused on proposed amendments to the emergency regulations and our current rulemaking effort to adopt permanent regulations. The emergency regulations were originally adopted in 2023 to provide immediate guidance for SB 1137 implementation, and includes such things as defining where to start and end the measurement of the 3,200-foot setback, and identifying various reporting requirements and information submittals for operators. Emergency regulations generally have a 2-year limit, but due to the pause created by the referendum, the emergency regulations for SB 1137 will expire at the end of June 2026. Thanks for your engagement tonight. I hope it becomes informative for you and generates a lot of questions that we can answer for you. So this concludes my portion. I'll turn it now back over to Sarah.
Thanks, Doug. Okay, so we've had probably 50 more people join since we started. So welcome if you've just joined a bit ago. My name is Sarah Rubin. I'm providing the facilitation tonight. And just as a reminder, we're about to have a presentation from my CalGEM colleagues, then we're going to have a presentation from CARB, then we will open it up for your comments. So with that, if you want to go to the next slide, I'm happy to turn this over to my colleague, Rohit Sharma.
Thank you, Sarah. Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Rohit Sharma, and I'm CalGEM's Chief Deputy of Operations, and I oversee all 3 CalGEM districts. I've been with the CalGEM for 13 plus years now. A little bit about me before I talk about my slides. I earned my master's degree in geology at Fresno State and my PhD in environmental and atmospheric sciences from South Dakota School of Mines. Over the year, I have been involved in several environmental programs with CalGEM, and the main goal of these programs has always been to protect both public health and environment. We know that there is a lot to understand about the emergency regulations and our current effort to adopt permanent regulations. So we are highlighting 7 areas tonight. I will be going over residence, parks, and measuring distances. And my colleague Ebikun Ajay will discuss stratigraphic wells, water sampling, neighborhood notification, and temporary facilities. So I will start with the definition of residence within the section of sensitive receptors. So since it can be difficult to verify unauthorized housing, the proposed change is intended to clarify that residences must comply with land use requirements. In practice, this means that an old barn or other building that is not residentially zoned will not be a sensitive receptor. Now I will highlight changes related to parks. So it can be a little confusing because there are 2 sections to look at here in the slide. I'm going to walk us through what the current emergency regulation require and then discuss the proposed changes. So under the current emergency regulations definition section, park must be located within the quarter mile of a sensitive receptor. The proposed regulations removes the quarter mile limit, thereby making the entire park a sensitive receptor. For the locations outside a health protection zone, existing regulation require an operator to identify all parks within 3,200 feet, which may be confusing. So there should be no obvious park, or it would be a health protection zone. So the current proposal deletes the reference to parks to minimize that confusion. So instead, when an operator provides information that a location is not a health protection zone, an explanation is required on why the area open to the public for open outdoor recreation should not be classified as a park. All parks are areas open to the outdoor recreation, but not all areas open for outdoor recreation should be considered as a park. The intention is to reflect a simplification of the park definition. What that means in practice is park will be assessed on a case-by-case basis. So the next clarification we are highlighting is measuring distances for sensitive receptors. The discussion draft includes changes in the measurements of distances from the production facility, from the geometric center to the edge of the closest to the nearest sensitive receptor. This is intended to result in consistency in the measurements. So we propose to clarify section 1765.2C by specifying that the measurement should be taken from the edge of the production facility that is closest to the sensitive receptor rather than from the geometric center of the facility. This change simplifies the guidelines and removes any confusion regarding whether the distance should be measured from the geometric center or the edge of the production facility. I will now hand it over to my colleague, Ibukun Ajay, to discuss remaining proposed changes. And thank you again.
Yeah, thank you, Rohit. Good evening, everyone, again. And once again, thank you all for being here. My name is Ibukun Ajay, and I'm a senior oil and gas engineer based in the CalGEM Ventura office. As Rohit said, I'll be covering the next 4 focus areas we'll be discussing tonight. First, I'll talk about the stratigraphic wells. Here we specify that the stratigraphic wells drilled to gather geological information for non-fossil fuel purposes are exempt from SB 1137 requirements. For those that are not familiar with what a stratigraphic well is, this is a specific type of well where the purpose for drilling these wells is solely to study subsurface geology and rock formation. The specificity here is about consistency with the non-fossil fuel provision in the statute. The next focus area I'll talk about is about water testing. The purpose for this requirement is to protect underground water sources that communities rely upon, focusing on operations that have a potential to impact underground water sources. Here, we talked about planned activities in the health protection zone that would involve drilling through unexposed rock or new formation. These activities include new drills, re-drilling, deepening, and sidetrack operations. The proposed regulation requires that operators notify owners and tenants and offer to do baseline water testing before commencing such activities, as well as follow-up testing at the conclusion of the work to ensure that no contamination has occurred. This notification and testing is not required for other routine repair type work because this work type are typically carried out on existing active and idle wells that already have adequate protection in place to prevent contamination. This protection is achieved through properly installed casing and verified placement of cement around the casing. Existing CalGEM regulations are designed to prevent potential contamination in these cases. CalGEM regulations require routine well testing to maintain the continuous integrity of these wells. And in the event of a failure, operators are required to immediately disconnect the well and promptly perform necessary repairs to restore mechanical integrity of the well, thereby ensuring constant protection of underground water resources. CalGEM would also issue violation civil penalties and order if necessary, whenever appropriate. The next focus area I'll talk about is regarding neighborhood notification. Under existing law, operators are required to issue a notice to property owners within 3,200-foot radius of planned drilling-related work. This notice must be sent at least 30 days before the work begins. The purpose of this requirement is to ensure that property owners are informed about the planned activities in their vicinity, giving them sufficient time to request baseline water sampling on their property should they choose to do so. Once this notice is issued, property owners have 20 days to respond and request water sampling and testing. Operators are required to notify the regional water board so they can oversee and witness the water sampling process. Operators are also required to notify CalGEM within 5 days of providing these notices confirming that the relevant nearby property owners or tenants have been notified. CalGEM may grant a waiver for water testing if the operator demonstrates that delaying the work could result in significant harm to life, health, or natural resources. Finally, operators are required to provide both pre and post operations water testing results no later than 120 days after the work has been completed. Finally, I will talk about temporary facilities. The regulation states that no new production facility shall be constructed or operated in a health protection zone unless determined by the division to be required for protection of public health and safety and the environment. But the regulation does not apply to temporary production facilities, which include facilities that have been installed or put into operations for any of the following purposes. First is facilities that have been put in place to respond to an oil spill or leak or associated cleanups, or facilities that have been put in place for conducting a plug and abandonment operation. And the last situation is facilities that are purposefully put in place for decommissioning work that will be removed after 60 days after the completion of the permitted work, unless an extension has been authorized by the division. This now concludes my part of the presentation. I will now hand it over to Sarah.
Thanks, Simbakun. Appreciate you. All right. So now we're going to move to our presentation from the Air Resources Board. Lou, you are up.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lou Dinkler, and I'm very pleased to be here on behalf of the SB 1137 implementation team with the California Air Resources Board. The title of tonight's presentation is SB 1137, Development of Performance Standards for Emission Detection Systems. I would like to thank CalGEM and the Department of Conservation for facilitating tonight's event and for inviting CARB to participate. Next, please. The goal of our presentation tonight is twofold. First is to provide a brief description of SB 1137's leak detection and response plan requirements, CARB's responsibilities under the law, operator implementation deadlines, CARB's rulemaking timeline, and next steps. Second is to solicit your input to inform our technical assessments and identify options that will provide the basis for CARB's regulatory proposal. Next. Existing oil and gas leak detection requirements. In order to provide context for SB 1137, it is important to note that oil and gas production facilities operating in California are currently subject to leak detection and repair requirements. As depicted on this graphic, air pollution control district rules seek to minimize volatile, organic, compound, and toxic air contaminants. CARB's greenhouse gas emission standards for crude oil and natural gas facilities seek to minimize methane emissions. US EPA has recently amended their new source performance standards with more stringent leak detection thresholds and limitations on previously exempt emission sources. These rules require periodic inspections using handheld instruments that are typically conducted on a quarterly basis. Over the next few slides, I will describe how SB 1137 differs from these existing requirements. Senate Bill 1137 establishes health protection zones around sensitive receptors located within 3,200 feet of oil and gas production wells and production facilities. Next. Examples of sensitive receptors include residences, schools, hospitals, and businesses that are open to the public. Operators of existing oil and gas wells and production facilities within a health protection zone must prepare and submit something called a leak detection and response plan. The focus of tonight's presentation will be on the requirements of the leak detection and response plan. Next, please. SB 1137 requires the leak detection and response plan to contain 4 key components, including a continuously operating emission detection system, an alarm system that alerts the operator when leaks are detected, a response protocol for identification and repair of leaks, and notification of the community when leaks persist and cannot be fixed within 48 hours. Next, please. Under SB 1137, CARB's responsibilities include the development of regulations to set performance standards for the emission detection systems. CARB, in consultation with air pollution control districts, will identify the pollutants of concern by region, as there is variation in the composition of oil and gas emissions throughout the state. CARB, in consultation with CalGEM, will review and approve or deny the leak detection and response plans. Additionally, CARB will collaborate with CalGEM to develop methods for providing public access to the data generated by the emission detection systems. Next, please. A performance standard refers to a set of defined criteria that a monitoring system should consistently meet during operation, allowing for reliable data collection and decision-making. Essentially, it's a benchmark for how well a system should perform under specific conditions. Examples of performance standards include accuracy, precision, operating range, probability of detection, and time to detection. Next, please. Leak detection and response plan implementation deadlines for oil and gas operators are established by law and are provided in this table. July 1st, 2028 is a deadline for operators to submit their plans. July 1st, 2029 is a deadline for CARB, upon concurrence with CalGEM, to approve or deny the plan, and if denied, provide a notice of deficiencies. July 1st, 2030 is a deadline for the operators to implement the plan, meaning the emission detection systems must be installed and operational. Here we see our proposed rulemaking timeline. As of today, we are in the preliminary stages of the rulemaking process. After this first introductory public workshop, we will have a second public workshop in late 2025. At this second public workshop, we'll present our draft regulatory text, draft supporting documents used to inform our rulemaking, as well as our draft alternatives analysis. In the spring of 2026, we will submit our alternative analysis to the Department of Finance. By late 2026, we will begin a 45-day public review and comment period. This is when our staff report and draft regulatory text will be available for public comment. The CARB board hearing will take place in late 2026, where the public is again invited to attend and provide comment. By the summer of 2027, we plan to release our final rulemaking package to the Office of Administrative Law for their approval. Our target effective date for this regulation is January 1st, 2028, which is followed by the July 1st, 2028 submission deadline for the operator's leak detection and response plans. Next. To support our rulemaking efforts, CARB staff is consulting with subject matter experts in the field of testing protocols, performance standards, emission modeling, and emission quantification. This includes discussions with the Colorado State University Methane Emissions Technology Evaluation Center, as well as the University of Texas Energy Emissions Modeling and Data Lab. CARB staff have also been in contact with several technology developers, receiving updates on much of the available monitoring and emission detection technology. Lastly, CARB is currently developing a contract to update and enhance our understanding of the chemical composition of emissions specific to oil and gas wells located throughout California. Next. Next steps. Currently, our team is evaluating and preparing reports for commercially available monitoring technologies, appropriate alarm thresholds, pollutants of concern, and alternatives. Next. As stated earlier, we plan to have 2 more public workshops, one in late 2025 to solicit feedback to improve our draft regulatory text before we finalize our analysis. We plan to conduct another workshop in late 2026 where CARB staff will answer questions on the technical support documents as well as the rulemaking documents. That concludes our presentation for tonight. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you being here, and we look forward to working with you on this important and impactful regulation. We do invite your questions, comments, suggestions, or any information you would like to share about the topics discussed in this presentation. You can reach out to our team via the email address on the screen and popped in the chat thread. We are also available for one-on-one meetings, either in person or remotely. And lastly, for more information, you can visit our website provided here on this slide. This is where we will post our draft documents once they become available for public review. At this point, I would like to pass the microphone back over to our meeting facilitator, Sarah, with the Department of Conservation.
Thank you, Lou. Appreciate you. Okay, so we are now at our public comment and question and answer section of our meeting. We hope you found those presentations informative and helpful. So here is what is going to happen. As I mentioned, we have a pretty big panel with broad expertise assembled to hopefully answer questions that you have. But I will warn everyone now, it is likely you could have questions that we can't answer tonight. But we are working on a frequently asked question document, and we plan to compile the questions that you ask tonight into that. And we'll be distributing that within a month of this meeting. The other thing is we're asking folks to keep their comment or question to 2 minutes. We do have over 100 people on, and we want to make sure we can get to everybody this evening. So if you want to ask a question, use the little raise your hand function, and I will come to you. So let's see, I'm going to introduce the panel, and then for those of you who are on the phone line, I'm going to remind you how you can signal that you want to say something. All right, so you already met Doug. Want to say hi again, Doug? Great. You already met Rohit. Great. You already met Ivakun. All right, now we've got Ben.
Hey, Ben Turner, Policy Advisor for Department of Conservation.
Thanks. Mike.
Hello, Mike O'Neill. My team produces the maps for the Health Protection Zone.
Mark.
Yes, Mark Steinhilber. I manage pipeline and facilities and develop regulations for them for CalGEM.
Thanks, Mark. Pete.
Sorry about that. Pete Beskus. I'm CalGEM Southern District Deputy, and I look after the Los Angeles and Orange County areas.
Thank you. Trey.
Trey Powell, Northern District Deputy.
Jacob.
Jacob Roper, Assistant Director for Communications.
Thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to introduce our colleagues at CARB. You all just heard Lou. So now I'm going to go to Donnie.
Good evening, Donnie Jackson, air pollution specialist for the Air Resources Board, working on the rulemaking project.
George.
My name is George Liu. I'm a branch chief with the Monitoring Laboratory Division, and I'm working on the SB 1137 project.
Thank you. Linda.
Hi, I'm Linda Charai. I am a senior attorney here at CARB, and I am helping the SB 1137 team with all their legal needs.
Michelle.
Hi, this is Michelle Wood, Air Pollution Specialist at the Air Board, Rulemaking Co-Lead.
Fantastic. Matt.
I'm Matt Bray here. I'm an engineer at CARB and part of the team developing our regulation.
Jeremy.
Hi, Jeremy Smith, Staff Air Pollution Specialist in the Monitoring Lab Division.
Fantastic. And we've got a few folks with us from the Water Board. Janice.
Evening all, Janice Sinke here with the State Water Board's Division of Water Quality, and I oversee our groundwater monitoring section.
Bill.
Hello, Bill Patzelt. I'm a senior engineering geologist at the State Water Board, and I'm here to hopefully answer questions regarding water sampling.
Great. Annalisa.
Good evening, Annalisa Kihara. I am the Assistant Deputy Director in the Division of Water Quality at the State Water Board.
Great. All right. So thank you again for all being here. Let's see. Okay, I'm looking for the raise your hand. Anyone want to raise your hand and come off mute and make a comment or ask a question?
Hi, this is Katie Knoll. Can everyone hear me?
Uh-huh.
Hi, I just had a question. I work for a local jurisdiction and we have a couple existing operators and we have other folks who have come to us requesting to add sensitive resources right next to those existing operators and production facilities. So what would that entail? Would that be something that the existing operator would then have to come to CARB and CalGEM to create these leak detection plans? And if so, how is that facilitated? In other words, is it the responsibility of the operator, or is that something that the applicant for the sensitive receptor would have to initiate?
All right. So I'm wondering if both Rohit and I don't know if Lou, you might want to add in too.
Thank you, Sarah. It is operators' responsibility to look for if their facilities are within HPZ. Operators are required to update their facility plan and submit the list of the sensitive receptors within their facility. And also CalGEM will update their maps to include any new sensitive receptor in their in the areas.
So then I guess you're saying it's the responsibility of the operator if, they haven't changed anything about their facility and someone comes in and puts a residence right next to them. It's then the responsibility of the operator to go to CalGEM and say, okay, now we have to create this leak detection response plan.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Tiana.
Hello, my name is Tiana Shaw Wakeman. I'm the Environmental Justice Program Director with a local organization, Black Women for Wellness, a reproductive justice and organization that's part of the Stand Together Against Neighborhood Drilling LA Coalition. Just want to name that we very much support CalGEM moving forward toward full implementation of the public health and safety protections in SB 1137. However, we're a bit disappointed that it feels like CalGEM weakened the emergency regulations and made more concessions to industry rather than strengthening them to protect public health, which we do not believe to be, and I do not believe to be the intent of SB 1137. For a couple examples, under community notifications, I strongly believe as an organization representing folks who are extremely impacted by toxic neighborhood urban oil drilling, operators should have to notify community members and give them the opportunity to demand water sampling ahead of all types of work requiring CalGEM approval near communities. It just doesn't make sense to limit notification and sampling to situations where an operator will drill through quote unquote previously unexposed rock. And then, under the production facilities and gas storage section, it doesn't feel like CalGEM should allow quote unquote replacement and relocation of existing production facilities in health protection zones because SB 1137 is supposed to ban construction operation of new facilities. So I think overall, hoping for opening up of the measures that are supposed to be focused on community health rather than industry. Thank you.
Thank you. So in addition to recording, we're certainly taking notes tonight and appreciate your comments. Okay, next I am gonna go to Patricia. Oh, I think I think you're unmuted, Patricia.
Can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead.
Hi, Patricia McPherson, Grassroots Coalition. Couple of quick questions. I see an answer here also written in by Jacob Roper. Is Jacob CalGEM or CARB?
He's Department of Conservation.
Okay, CalGEM. My question that I had written in was Baiona Wetlands has a freshwater marsh, and I asked if it was considered a park sensitive receptor as it is a park, but also close to homes and schools of Playa Vista here in Los Angeles on the coast. The freshwater marsh has ongoing leakage, oil field gas leakage over top of an old abandoned well that has been a leaky well. It's called University City Syndicate. And as gas migration expert Dr. Bernard Endres calls it, an open pipeline gas volume overtopping this abandoned well. And it was last abandoned by Playa Vista and is within SoCalGas Playa del Rey gas storage mineral rights. So I'm wondering, and I do know, Mr. Beskis, that I have sent you information on this well, and considering it is within a health protection zone, how do we get this well reabandoned so that it doesn't have this leakage going on?
I'm so grateful that you came tonight, Patricia, and that you're active in your local community. Tonight, we are focused on this draft regulation, and I'm actually going to ask Pete if separately you can reach out to Patricia so you guys can reconnect. And then I'm going to go ahead and keep going. We've got a lot of hands up. Okay, next I've got Matthew.
Hi, my name is Matt Thomas. I'm a supervisory natural resource specialist with the Bureau of Land Management out of the Bakersfield, California office. I was curious if anyone could tell me what level of involvement you've had from the Bureau of Land Management and what level that has been with. Secondly, I'm curious what CalGEM and CARB's level of jurisdiction is over federal land and federal mineral estate or private land over federal mineral estate, also known as split estate. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see. I think next we've got Andrea.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Andrea Vega, and I'm with the organization Food and Water Watch. I'm glad that CalGEM is moving forward on fully implementing SB 1137, but I'm also concerned with how the pre-rulemaking regulations make concessions to the oil industry and weaken the emergency regulations. CalGEM must move forward with regulations necessary to implement SB 1137 and protect public health, regardless of compliance cost to industry, especially given that these companies profit off of poisoning our communities. Operators should not be able to argue that anything that meets the definition of a sensitive receptor somehow does not actually qualify as a sensitive receptor, and CalGEM should not be able to give itself discretion to waive requirements designed to protect human health and the environment, especially with regard to water sampling and testing. Furthermore, CalGEM should add additional protection measures consistent with SB 1137 and sought by community members and the public in the public health rulemaking, such as provisions for non-emergency spill reporting, tank leak detection, and pipeline inspection and cleanup. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I've got Melissa, then Cooper, and then I'm going to check in with anybody on the phone line. Melissa, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Melissa Munoz. I'm a college student in Ventura County, and I'm also with Climate First Replacing Oil and Gas, also known as CFROG. And I would just like to share that California communities have fought tirelessly for years to secure the protections of SB 1137. We call for full enforcement of the implementation of SB 1137 without any industry-friendly loopholes. CalGEM essentially watering down emergency regulations is unacceptable. Time and time again, gas leaks, oil spills, and public health studies have shown the urgent need for the strongest enforcement of protections, yet regulators continue to prioritize opposing interests over community well-being. Community members deserve transparency and protection. Operators must notify residents of nearest communities ahead of any and all work requiring CalGEM approval. SB 1137 is meant to protect Californians from the dangers of neighborhood drilling. We call on CalGEM to ensure and uphold that these protections are fully enforced against the very industry responsible for this harm. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I want to remind everyone that we have Spanish interpretation happening. And if you can, everyone can just try to talk not too fast so it's not too hard for the interpreters. And then Cooper, before I come to you, I just want to remind folks, we do have some people who phoned in. So if you phoned in through the Zoom phone line, in order to show us you're raising your hand, you would push *9. If you are with us on the Spanish language 800 number, to raise your hand, you would push *1. So, interpreting team, I'm going to come to you after Cooper to see if there's anybody who's raised their hand on the Spanish language telephone line. Cooper, you are up.
Good evening. My name is Cooper Cass. I'm a staff attorney at the Center for Biological Diversity's Climate Law Institute. SB 1137 is a significant step in the right direction for California, and the implementing regulations must not shorten that step. The regulations should be as protective as possible of sensitive receptors and the people who inhabit them. SB 1137 is clear, quote, further assistance must be provided to frontline communities that have been most polluted by the fossil fuel industry by cleaning up pollution and remediating negative health impacts, unquote. We're concerned that this discussion draft does not live up to that standard, and we will submit a comment letter outlining our concerns. For now, we ask that CalGEM review the text of the statute, the emergency regulations, and the discussion draft changes with this question in mind. Do these proposed changes strengthen or weaken crucial protections for the people who have been and are continuously affected by the industry's extractive activities? We call on CalGEM to meet its duty to protect public health and safety and environmental quality. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Heidi, Mark, Fabiola, anyone you raising their hand on the Spanish language 800 line? Okay, nothing so far. Got it. Okay, so just one more time, if you have phoned in tonight through the Zoom telephone 888 number, if you'd like to raise your hand, you're going to push *9. So is there anybody? Oh, Emma, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Sarah, thanks so much for hosting this. I'm Emma Silber, she, her pronouns, with Physicians for Social Responsibility LA and the Stand LA Coalition and Vision. I just wanted to bring up one thing that hasn't been discussed so far, which is, while we support CalGEM's intent to incentivize police raids of unhoused encampments, I do think that there are concerns that some unhoused people may feel like they have no other option but to camp within, within 3,200 feet of oil and gas activities. So we just encourage CalGEM to research how to prevent such, how prevalent is this issue? Like, how many encampments are there within health protection zones that would be impacted by this? And to continue to think about, compassionate solutions in cooperation with other agencies throughout the state to find ways to protect everyone from the impacts of oil and gas drilling. And also wanted to add on to what other folks have said about, the risk of water contamination is present for, the whole timeline of the well use. And so for well repair and rework activities, we believe that impacted residents should have an opportunity to seek water sampling and testing for, all aspects of well work and not just when they're drilling through previously unexposed rock, which is what's in the new regulation. So thanks so much.
Thank you. So I've got Catherine, then Kayla. Catherine, your turn.
Hi, I'm Catherine Ronan. I just have a question. Is there any case where an operator could drill an existing well deeper or do slant drilling within a health protection zone?
Rohit, you or one of your team members want to take that one?
Ibikun, can you take this question?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Hi, thanks for the question. Yeah, so based on the regulation, operators are required to submit a justification for carrying out drilling type activity in the health protection zone. And they have to be able to demonstrate to us that the drilling activity is in support of protecting public health and safety. And once they put that through with their submission for the notice of intent, application for the permits, and we have a technical team in CalGEM where we have to review that and make sure that they meet the threshold for an exemption. And if we discover or we determine that they do not, then the permits wouldn't be approved.
Now, my question really is, would well deepening or slant drilling ever meet those criteria?
Without seeing the justification that the operator presents to us, it has to be evaluated on a case by case.
So
we think the threshold is going to be really high for them to meet, but they have the opportunity to provide justification for those type of activities and prove to us that it's in service of protecting the public health.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, next we've got Kayla and then Nicole. Kayla? I'm worried I messed her up. Do you guys see Kayla? Oh, here she is. Okay. Kayla, I think I clicked on the wrong person. Can you hear us?
No worries. Yes, can you hear me? I take that as a yes.
Yeah, sorry, go for it.
No worries. I just want to emphasize some other points other folks have made, that all types of wells, repair and rework, not just new drilling, have the risk of aquifer contamination. And so the importance to include that in the rulemaking. And also I just want to make the point that, even in this agency's own public health report, 3,200 feet is the minimum, and therefore the measuring distance should be property lines, not building centers or other centers, but rather property lines. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, Nicole, you are now up.
Hi, my name's Nicole Evan. I'm calling with the Sierra Club Angeles chapter, and I did want to also echo the concerns about, I'll speak a little slower, weakening the emergency rule, echoing all the concerns around that. And I had a question about some of the things where you mentioned it's on the operator to, if there's new building, there are new sensitive receptors next to oil drilling, it's on the operator to kind of like comply with regulations. Will there be, what does enforcement for that look like? Like what happens if operators don't comply? My second question was more, I believe it was in, for some of the air quality regulations, there were some exceptions for wells that are, maybe it was for both. There are exceptions for wells that are to address an oil spill or a leak. I'm curious what will be the like benchmarks to like prove that. Just concerned about like, will all the evidence be on the operators to kind of like prove that? I'm concerned that they'll be able to like maybe say that they're trying to improve the well and drill anyways. So I guess what enforcements will there be to prevent that kind of that loophole to be abused by the industry?
Got it. Okay.
Thank you.
So yes, you're welcome. So I don't know if Rohit and Ibukun, if you want to take the first question, and then Lou, Donnie, your team, if you want to circle back to some of what you talked about on exceptions.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. I'll take the portion about how do we know if operators are complying with HPZ or health protection zone requirements. So we prioritize our inspection within the sensitive area, which include health protection zone. So our inspector would know if the operator is not complying to the 1137 regulations. And operators are also regularly need to update their plans and submit their sensitive receptors to CalGEM. And if they don't, we follow with the enforcement action. Thanks.
Thank you. Lou? You all are on mute. Or hi, Michelle. There you go. Go ahead, Michelle.
We might need the second part of that question to be restated because it started off sounding like air quality, but then it seemed to shift into exemptions for spills. And to our knowledge, from an air quality leak detection system perspective, there's no statutory exemption for spills. We've also got Linda, our lawyer, on a parallel line, and she can correct me. But can we get some clarification on that second question?
Yeah, I think it was actually for the CalGEM department.
Oh, okay.
Not for the quality.
My fault.
It was for the part that was around the exemptions for specific types of wells.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Okay. So I'm going to go to the next hand I see up, which is Matthew.
Hi, I apologize if earlier it didn't come across as a question. I'm going to try and speak slowly for the interpreter. I was curious what level of involvement you've had from the Bureau of Land Management and at what level that has been with. My second question is, what is CalGEM or CARB's level of jurisdiction over federal land and federal mineral estate or private land on federal mineral estate, also known as split estate? Thank you.
Thank you. And I apologize if I didn't realize you had a specific question in there. Okay, team.
I can take the first part of the question. I think
Great.
the second is a little bit outside of the meeting, but we can certainly follow up. So in terms of the level of interaction, we engage with BLM staff on a variety of issues. My last contact was with the new California Division Director, Joe Stout. And we didn't talk specifically about 1137, but certainly we're open to having additional conversations or meetings. But certainly, Matthew, if you, I guess we could follow up with you afterwards to see if we can answer some of your specific questions.
If you want to use a Q&A function and put your contact information in, then we can follow up with you, Matthew. All right, Kayla. You should be back.
Apologies, old hand.
That's okay. Oh, okay, no problem. All right. Anybody else want to share? Oh, thank you. And we've got no hands raised on the Spanish language line. I don't see any hands raised from the phone number, folks. Anyone else want to make a comment or before we begin to wrap up?
It looks like you've got Shilpa Gupta that would like to make a comment. She's got her hand raised.
Thank you. All right, welcome.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Shilpa Gupta. I am an environmental supervisor from Los Angeles City. Harv mentioned having data available along working with CalGEM and having data available on a public website or a forum. They just mentioned having data available and working with CalGEM. So I was wondering if any thought was given as to how this will be made available, whether this will be real time or on CalGEM's GIS systems, or whether this will be quarterly, weekly, what would be the forum? And would it be real time when emergencies happen or leak detections take place? If someone can expand on it, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Panel, there's something about my audio. I could hear about maybe 60% of what she said. Did you guys get it?
Yeah, I can take it, Sarah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, absolutely. Jacob Roper, Assistant Director for Communications. Thank you for your question. We actually have quite a bit of information already available on the website. When you refer to what we're talking about tonight, which would be any permits near health protection zones, you can actually go online to CalGEM's Well Finder app, and I'll go ahead and put that in the link right now, or I'll post that link in the chat for everybody. And what you can do is use that to find out a well's API number, and then go on to our online databases and find out if any permits have been pulled onto that well to see if any work is planning on happening. You can also check and see if recent inspections have been done and so forth. You can also check something called the WellStar dashboard, which is available from our homepage, and that will show you any new permitting activity from CalGEM.
Thanks,
Jacob.
Go ahead.
I increased my volume on that one. I actually think the question was related to the data that's collected during the leak detection and monitoring implementation process. If that's the case, if I heard correctly, that is something that CARB would be interested in. Well, we'd all be interested in hearing as part of the CARB rulemaking process with respect to what type of data, how often, and kind of the public availability of that.
Hi, this is Michelle. I can give a quick answer and more to come in the months ahead. We are just at the very beginning of evaluating the best ways to make that data available, and that's something that'll be done in collaboration with CARB, between CARB and CalGEM, because this is a lot of data we're talking about. And so we will work with them in the months ahead, exploring a number of options on how to make that data available. Stay tuned.
Thank you. Okay. I've got a few more hands, but before I go to anyone new, Rohit, did you want to add in anything else about parks?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that the removal of park in this definition means that all the parks are now a sensitive receptor. So we remove the quarter mile definition because it's not in the statute. So now all the parks are sensitive receptors. Initially, it was linked to the educational institute. Now, again, it's a sensitive receptor. Just want to clarify that.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go to Patricia, then Mary, then Matthew. So Patricia, you are up again.
Hi, you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Thank you again. Patricia McPherson, Grassroots Coalition. I just want to get something clarified. I put in an earlier question in the chat asking about were some of these conditions for and health protection evaluations being done. And I know, Mr. Beskett, I had spoken with you, and you had said, for instance, for drilling new wells, that 1137 does not apply to an oil field that is also an oil field that is used as an underground gas storage operation, which is the Playa del Rey oil field. It's an active oil field, also an underground gas storage that directly underlies neighborhoods. I think it's the only one in the United States that directly underlies neighborhoods and adjacent neighborhoods. Does this not apply to this field?
Appreciate you bringing this up. Ibukun or Rohit, do you want to talk about the way this applies?
I can jump in on that
Go
one.
ahead, Trey. Thanks.
Trey Powell, CalGen Northern District. The statute does exclude underground gas storage wells from the 1137. But if they were trying to drill oil and gas wells that were unrelated to the UGS projects, those would be covered. So wells that are specifically for the underground gas injection operations are not covered per the statute, but anything that is related to oil and gas production specifically would be covered and subject to 1137.
Thank you, Trey. Okay, Mary, then Matthew. Mary.
Citizen of Signal Hill, California. Thank you for holding this. And my question, I mean, I have a lot of questions. I want to thank you all for holding it and for the comments that have gone beforehand. I agree with, I'm nervous about self-reporting of the oil wells though, because I'm sure, as you know, we have Signal Hill has a pending permit. So you said go and look it up, but how do I know what the status is at this point? Because they never followed up with our public comment process and haven't followed up with anything of the rulemaking, et cetera. Now that the rulemaking is happening, I just hope that all isn't lost in terms of them continuing to work on it. Well, it's my understanding that their current permit is expired, yet they continue to work and their extension is out there and hasn't been addressed. So me as a citizen, how will I know what they're doing and what it impacts? Thank you.
Really appreciate what you phrased. Jacob, you want to start that one?
You know, I'm gonna need help. I don't think I tracked what she was saying about the state of the permit process.
They have a pending permit for new and old drilling.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. So I think Rohit, you have it.
Yeah, so if you want to see the status of the permit, you can go to our website, public website, and check the status of the permit. Is that your question? You need to know the permit status, and it can be checked from our website.
I know, but it's been pending for a long time now. So I guess I'm gonna have to submit it in my public comments because it's a special situation. And we do have storage underground, I believe, as well. But it concerns me that they're asking for additional drilling, and it was supposed to go through a public comment process, and it seems to have been stalled. So I guess I don't know who to ask, but thank you.
I wonder, Mary, if you want to put your contact so we can follow up with you directly and help you get clear status. All right, my next person is Matthew. Go ahead, Matthew.
Hi, how's it going? I have a question. I think it's directed at CARB. My name is Matthew Pels. I work for an oil and gas operator in Lost Hills, California, and I'm a resident of Bakersfield. The other day, actually 2 weeks ago, I noticed a CARB vehicle that was driving around with what looked like air monitoring equipment, kind of near our facility entrance. And I was just wondering generally, or specific to Lost Hills, if any air monitoring data had been collected to provide some support to the 3,200 foot setback distance.
No.
Hi, we have one of our folks queuing up to respond to your question right now. This is Michelle, and Jeremy will take that question because he may have been one of the folks in the car.
Cool.
Hi, everyone. Can y'all hear me? This is Jeremy Smith.
Yep.
I can hear you.
Hi, yes, that was actually me. I was out there in that vehicle at that time.
Oh, you probably saw me. I was in a truck.
Yeah,
Exiting the facility. Okay.
Oh, yes. Hello again.
How's it going?
Yeah, that monitoring was done as part of a follow-up to our SNAPS program in Lost Hills that concluded back in 2019. So it was a different monitoring project unrelated to this.
Okay. But and how about generally, did you guys collect data specific to this regulation?
No, it was a follow-up for our health risk assessment that was in the Lost Hills SNAPS project.
But I mean, not in Lost Hills, but just in general not just for this time, but at all.
I would say in this case, the SNAPS programs that we did monitoring in Lost Hills and in the last couple of years down in the Inglewood oil field area would be the closest thing that we have that is directly applicable.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. All right. Let's see. Anyone else? Oh, here's one. David. Go ahead, David.
Hello. I guess tailing on that comment about SNAPS, will that data be used in the development of the rulemaking?
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Sure. Hi, this is Jeremy Smith again. And no, that data is not being used directly in this regulation development. It's part of its own project.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else want to make a comment before we start wrapping up? We're so grateful you all were here this evening. And if you have any friends or colleagues who you think would be interested in these issues, we're having another one of these meetings, exact same content, exact same presentations tomorrow evening. So be sure to tell your friends. All right. Anybody on our team want to add anything else before I close us out? I'm not seeing any nodding heads. All right. Well, thank you all so much. Have a great evening, and we really appreciate your time. Good night.